Good morning and welcome to the 2015 Arts Summit. Let's get engaged. Just don't tell my wife. I'm Paul Wiegraff, Director of the Delaware Division of the Arts, and it is my pleasure on behalf of the Division of the Arts and the Delaware State Arts Council to welcome you to the Arts Summit and to thank you for your attendance. I would like at this time to just point out the Division of the Arts staff. They're sprinkled around throughout, and we are wearing name tags that have little blue ribbons on them. I see Sheila back there, Roxanne, Katie West is around somewhere, and Kristen Pleasanton, and Dana Wise and Gwen Henderson were out at the sign-in desk. Also, if the State Arts Council members would please rise. We have a number of them in attendance with us today. I see Kathy and Cheryl and John and Lise and Michael and Marianne. Great. So thank you so much for attending too. They are wearing name tags with a purple ribbon at the bottom. For those of you who are prone to tweeting and whatnot, you can use Twitter at ArtsDel to join today's conversation at hashtag DEArtsSummit. I know Katie will be busy with that. One item of business, we have a new activity in this year's summit, which we'll take care of at the end of the day, coffee talk. And what that will entail is an opportunity for all of you, from feedback we've received at previous summits, an opportunity to network with each other on topics of your choosing. So you see at your tables there this morning a bunch of blank index cards with pencils. What we encourage you to do this morning before you leave for your first workshops is to jot down on a note card, if you are so inclined, a topic that you would like to discuss this afternoon with some of your colleagues here in the room. And what we will do throughout the course of the morning is consolidate those cards into 4 or 5 general topic areas, and then at lunchtime we will announce where those topical groups will be meeting during our reception this afternoon. There'll be an opportunity for you to pop into one or more of those discussions while you're refreshing yourselves with coffee and beverage this afternoon. So I invite you to put in your ideas there. Finally, I'd like to thank our summit sponsors, the Department of State, the National Endowment for the Arts, and Brandywine Electronics, Ltd. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce someone who really needs no introduction. Jack Markell has served as Governor of Delaware since 2009. After being elected in 2008 and re-elected in 2012, both times with nearly 70% of the vote. During his administration, Governor Markell has also been recognized at the national level by his fellow governors, having served as both the chair of the Democratic Governors Association and the National Governors Association. Now, as a biennial event, this Arts Summit marks the last Arts Summit that will be held under Governor Markell's watch, unless we can get a legislation for third terms being permitted. During Governor Markell's tenure, we at the Division of the Arts, with under the advisory body, the Delaware State Arts Council, have been able to sustain funding for arts programming and increase funding to support arts organizations in their efforts to provide programming and build in their professional capacity for sustainability. We have been able to increase the visibility of Delaware artwork at state venues. We've been able to present Delaware artwork on international trade missions. We've been able to recognize Delaware artists, sustaining artist fellowships at a time even of economic hard times when other states throughout the country have eliminated funding for artists. We've been able to have special events honoring such artists as Ed Loper, Charles Parks. We've been able to sustain an active Poet Laureate program, and our Poet Laureate, Joanne Belinget, is here today with us. We've been able to build our impact through collaboration with cross-marketing and promotional activities increasing the visibility of the arts as a cultural asset in our communities, and in programming through partnering with our fellow state agencies, libraries, parks and rec, and the like. I could go on about how Governor Markell has been engaged with the arts in Delaware, but I have a hunch that most of you here know that. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Governor Jack Markell.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank Paul for that very nice introduction and for the great work that he continues to do in his position working with all of you. I will say to start off, I see the stage set up for a performance, and I will tell you, it really would be true that my mother, who is 89 years old, if she had had the choice, she would much rather me be a pianist capable of performing in front of all of you than be a governor. I took piano lessons for many years as a child until finally my piano teacher told my mother, please take pity on him, he's not getting any better. But I certainly can appreciate great talent, and it's wonderful to have so much in our state. I also want to say that we have over at this table over here 3 generations of artists in one family. The grandmother does crochet, the daughter does traditional painting, and the granddaughter does digital art. And if that doesn't say something about the generational change in art, but I think we should all, let's hear it for this wonderful 3 generations over here. From the perspective of our kids, we know that kids who are exposed to the arts develop a part of themselves that they otherwise wouldn't develop, and also, frankly, kids who have exposure to the arts do better in their academic subjects as well. And we also know that for a lot of our young people who are vulnerable and who may have run into some kind of trouble, when they get exposure to the arts, and we see this at Ferris, and we see it elsewhere, for those young people, when they're exposed to the arts for the first time, oftentimes it's the first time that they have that their self-esteem actually increases, because they're recognized for a talent that they've never been recognized for before. And so for all of those purposes, we think that what you're doing is so important. You all do extraordinary work. The staffs at your organizations do extraordinary work, the volunteers, the boards, the performers. And I know it must be hard when you go to, I was at the Delaware Theater Company on Saturday night for opening night of the great new play, written, by the way, the playwright is a Delawarean that lives up in Claymont. It's a play called Playing the Assassin. It's just open, so you ought to go check it out. And so whether it's the Delaware Theater Company, whether it's the ballet, whether it is the symphony, whether it's, the Schwartz Theater or Possum Point Players or whichever, I can't mention all of them because there's so many. But I hope that I will have, I still have 15 months to go, and I hope that I'll have an opportunity during those 15 months to get to many of your venues and performances and the like. But please know how much I appreciate, how much my wife Carla, many of you know Carla, and she has been such a passionate supporter of the arts in Delaware, because she also believes it's just so fundamental to who we are as a people. And so I hope that today, with the guest speakers that you have here, will be one more piece. I hope the networking opportunities will be helpful to you as we continue to build and strengthen a vibrant arts community in our state. Thanks very much for all you do.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I just have the distinct pleasure of introducing a good friend of mine, Randy Cohen. So Randy is Vice President of Research and Policy at Americans for the Arts, the nation's advocacy organization of the arts. He publishes the National Arts Index, the annual measure of the health and vitality of the arts in the U.S., as well as two premier economic studies of the arts industries. Randy developed the National Arts Policy Roundtable, an annual convening of leaders who focus on the advancement of American culture, in partnership with Robert Redford and the Sundance Institute. An in-demand speaker, Randy has given speeches in 49 states and regularly appears in the news media, including the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and on C-SPAN, CNN, CNBC, and NPR. What's left? Randy. Some folks at Americans for the Arts still wonder what the missing state is. Perhaps you can tell us about that today. There are also rumors, listen to this, about his surprising capacities to juggle knives and flaming torches in the office and under the fire sprinklers. I wonder if he can elaborate on that as well. Randy, you gotta do it. We are grateful for his visit to Delaware today, knowing that the 2016 electoral cycle is rapidly approaching. Arts advocacy, as you know, becomes pivotal to inform constituents where elected officials stand, and those running for office as well, in terms of the arts education, and quality of life. Supported by his research, the unified voice of the arts community in Delaware will be ready to make the case for the sector. Without further ado, I present to you Randy Cohen.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Thank you, everybody. Well, it's great to be with you all today. Thanks so much for the kind introduction. And thanks for your great leadership, too. Leading not just the arts advocacy charge here in Delaware, but at the state arts advocacy organizations across the country. So I appreciate you've got great leadership here. Paul, thanks so much. And the great words of the governor, who, kind of advanced my speech a little bit. So you've got him right on message, and he seemed to really be delivering that. So, and that's the great work of all of you, too. So, yes, I do juggle knives and torches. I didn't bring them with me today, but just to give the guys at the office a little bit of excitement, I'll do it under the little fire sprinkler thing, the torches, and because when one goes, they all go. So just to make it interesting, but and also actually, like the governor made me remember, I too started with piano, not so successful. In fact, the piano teacher said, he really seems to be trying. The hands are a little small. Maybe he needs a better ear, But trumpet might be just the thing for him. And so the next school year, we tried trumpet, and that kind of hurt, and it didn't sound so good either. And eventually, drama, and it kind of worked. But, my mom still had the 7th grade recipe holder from shop that I made for all those years. So that worked out pretty well. But what I did learn is that whether we're in the arts, steeped in the arts, a professional artist, a fan of the arts, or just a fan of healthier communities, we've all got a job to do, and that is to advance the arts in our communities and advance the great work that you all do. So I just really want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for the work you do in delivering the arts and advancing the arts, and really in building healthier communities through the arts. The arts, fundamental to who we are as a person. Food for the soul, they inspire us, they delight us, they engage us, they create the communities and societies that we want to live in, and they have for a long time. So several years ago, some anthropologists in Germany were in a cave studying past civilizations and how people lived and that type of thing, and they came across this hand-carved flute, which was made out of an animal bone, and they tested it and figured out it was 35,000 years old. Stone Age flute. They eventually, someone got enough guts to sort of, let's blow some air through it and see what happens. And, wow, it actually sounded pretty good. But what was interesting in reading this article, they were trying to figure out, now, what was the purpose of this flute? They thought, well, maybe it was to help promote territorial expansion, or to help celebrate the hunt, or related to the fertility ritual, perhaps. I just kept thinking, maybe they liked the way it sounded, but that never showed up. But you know, the point is, art's central to our community for a long time, and of course gave rise to the great pickup line, "My cave or yours," you know, which has been around for all these years. So, but interestingly, this flute thing really stayed with people. And now fast forward to the 1700s, we find the shame flute. Now the shame flute, this little ditty, was made out of cast iron, and it was clasped around a person's neck, and the fingers were shackled to this long iron tube. And the purpose of the shame flute was to punish bad musicians. So, yeah, you got a gig at the Prince's Palace and you stank up the joint? Well, they'd march you around town in the shame flute for a couple of days so everybody could laugh at the bad musician. You know, it sounds a little barbaric, but hey, they liked their music and cared about it then, right? So anyway, the point is, art's fundamental to our communities, have been for a long, long time. But we're a very pragmatic nation, and you know, I'm sure we've all gone and, you know, we talk to our legislators and our authorizers and our decision makers, and we talk about the value of the arts to the soul. That gets people's attention, but so often they're like, well, you know, what else? You heard it from the governor. You know, tell me about the economic benefits. Tell you about the educational benefits. Well, the good news is, thanks to all of your work and all your peers across the country, there's actually some phenomenal data and stories to underscore all of that. Now, just to illustrate this, I'll give you a little story. I actually got to go to an arts event not long ago. You know, you think with Americans for the Arts on my business card, I'm going to the arts all the time, right? I wish. I have much trouble getting out the door as the next guy. But it was date night with my wife. And so we knew we were going to go out, and it was going to be on a Friday night. Of course, now date night actually starts 2 weeks before, because when we were working it right, actually planning date night. And so, you know, we knew we were going to go out and see an arts event. I was kind of pulling for a theater thing. Jenny was pulling for a dance thing. So we went online. We started checking websites and, you know, see what performances were going on. And settled on a theater thing. And then, you know, pulled out the credit card, you know, punched in the numbers, bought our tickets, you know, loved the e-commerce, right? So we were all set. So the big evening comes. She presented me with a necktie. I was informed we'd be dressing up this evening. And so we got dressed up. And on the way out to the theater, we stopped and had dinner, right? Isn't that something we do a lot of times when we're going out? So we went to a nice restaurant, spent about $60, had a nice meal. And then from there, it was off to the theater. And, you know, we parked in the parking garage, paid our $10 to the attendant. It was a municipal garage. And then the theater was right next door, and went in and shared a glass of wine. And on our way into the auditorium, you know, hit the facilities real quick, got our program, sat down. It was an older historic theater, you know, with the big, beautiful chandeliers. And we sat there before the play started and read about the show we were going to see and about the theater's history and everything. Now, I'll stop just right there a second, because it's still 5 minutes to 8. The show hasn't even started yet, right? But think about all the industries that have already been touched related to this one date night for the arts. Well, it started 2 weeks before, when we started going online and looking at websites and looking at the different arts organizations. Arts organizations, well, we hire web designers and programmers. We bought the tickets. You know, remember I punched the numbers in. So you got the e-commerce and the finance people. They're seeing, you know, some impact as a result of this. And then the date night comes. You know, there was a new necktie, so there was some retail before the evening even began. And then we went to the restaurant. We spent $60 for the dinner. Now, you know, so some of that $60, well, it was one of those local farm to fork places, right? So everything's grown within 50 miles. So some of those $60 are going to the growers and the producers who, you know, produce the food. And then some going to the waiters, getting some personal income, and the owner of the restaurant, some entrepreneurial income. So there's all of that happening. And then we went and parked the car, and it was $10 at a city parking garage. So the city's getting in on the action a little bit. We go to the auditorium, and, you know, you've got catering that does the glass of wine, and, you know, we hit the facilities. Doesn't matter if it's our house or a big performing arts center, we all need a good plumber, right? You know, sometimes. So, you know, even the trades are seeing some impact. And we got our program. you know, when in the theater, you know, whenever you go to an arts event, whether it's a performing event or a visual arts event, we're always getting paper. You know, arts organizations, we hire designers and printers and the people that deliver all of that stuff. And finally, we sat down in the auditorium. Now, you know, I used to run a theater, so I can tell you, those big, beautiful chandeliers, it's not interns changing those light bulbs, need electricians to get up there, right? So they're seeing some of what's going on. Now, 8 o'clock comes, you know, the chimes play, the curtain goes up, the play begins. That's the point that a lot of people start to think, oh, wow, I bet those actors are getting paid, and wow, what incredible costumes. I bet they had a costume designer too. But what we tried to do with this big study is capture all of these economic benefits, all the spending by your arts organizations, as well as that event-related spending by arts audiences. So that's what we set out to do with Arts and Economic Prosperity. Everyone good? We capture that? Okay, so what did we find out? So that's the story. All right, so what we found out is that the total expenditures by the organizations and their audiences, $142 million in the state of Delaware. Now, this is fiscal 2010, $142 million. $103 million of that is spending by the organizations themselves, your organizations. Now, that's a myth buster for a lot of people because everybody appreciates the work you do and improving our quality of life. But the fact is, this shows arts organizations are businesses. They employ people locally. They purchase goods and services in the community. They're members of the Chamber of Commerce, and they're helping to promote tourism for their region. Arts organizations are good business citizens. And that activity generates an additional $39 million in spending by arts audiences. So number one, let me just say, when we're, as advocates, and we're all advocates, and we all have a job to do out there, let me just say, being a great advocate, you can boil it down to 3 questions. What's the message? Who gets the message? And who delivers the message? Now, we've talked about some great messages today. Arts in the economy, arts in healthcare, arts in education, building a healthier workforce, and a stronger workforce in our community. A lot of great messages about what the arts do. And who gets that's the first message. Who gets the message? Well, clearly the governor has gotten the message, but it sounds like in 18 months, there's going to be another message. And if I've learned anything over the years, it's relentless messaging. You know, just when you think you've got it in place, you know, the faces change, you got to stay with it all the time. So always keep your eye on who that gets that message. And then who delivers the message? That's us, obviously. We're the usual suspects. But who's on our boards of directors? Who are our neighbors? Who are the people benefiting from all those great messages we talked about? Get your hospital CEO up there. Get your education leaders up there, because they make a compelling case as well. I was listening to a story from the mayor of Mesa, Arizona one time, who was telling us that it was budget hearing night, and it was him and the city council, and they were all lined up there, and everybody was doing their 3-minute presentations on the value and the importance of the arts. And then, but he said, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the chief of police was there, which wasn't that unusual. It was a city council meeting, but he was in full chief of police regalia, tie, medals, hat, and that was a little different. And after everybody else had spoken, he asked to come up for 3 minutes. And he said, if you got to take a cut out of the arts budget, I'd just rather you took it out of my public safety budget. Because when they do their job well, it makes my job easier. Boy, wouldn't it be great if every police chief in America was on message there, right? So again, very powerful for who delivers the message. So let me finish by concluding here. What you're looking at here is a picture from the Louvre in 1912. And this space, this is where the Mona Lisa had been hanging. And in 1912, the Mona Lisa got stolen. It actually took them 2 years to get it back. But in the 2 years that the Mona Lisa was gone, more people went to see where it had been hanging, yeah, you know where this is going, than saw the actual painting in the previous 14 years. And so what we do, it's so important. And yet we've got to tell our story again and again. You know, remember the golden rule, no number without a story, and no story without a number. And hopefully I've just given you an idea today about the value that we bring to our communities, to our states, and how your work is transforming the communities that we live in. Everything you do to advance the arts is important, and you're important for doing it. So thank you very much.